Hello, welcome to Rooted in the Word. We are on week 31. Week 31. I wanted to start in Luke 22, 24 through 30. So I want to just start with reading that. A dispute arose among them as to which of them was to be regarded as the greatest. And he said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those in authority over them are called benefactors. But not so with you. Rather, let the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is greater, one who reclines at table or one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines at table? But I am among you as the one who serves. You are those who have stayed with me in my trials, and I assign to you, as my Father assigned to me, a kingdom, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." So first, basically, Jesus says, you know, the greatest one among you is the one who is the least, basically. We are to serve, and that is how we become great. Don't lord yourself over others, essentially, is what he's telling them to do there. But then he goes into the, you have stayed with me in all my trials. So he's specifically talking to the disciples and everybody that's with them at the Last Supper as people who have kept the faith and stayed with Jesus. They've traveled with him this whole time. They have followed him. They believe in him. And they have been with him through all of the trials that they faced. And then he is giving them thrones in heaven to judge over the 12 tribes of Israel. Which kind of reminds me back in Matthew 20:23. Oh, hey, look, right there. Look at that flip. Where the mother of John and James walks up to Jesus and asks Jesus, say that these two sons of mine are to sit, one on your right hand and one on your left, in your kingdom. And Jesus replied, "Do you not know what you are asking? Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" And they said, "We are able." And Jesus said, "You will drink my cup, but to sit on my right hand and my left hand is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." So I think that kind of full circles here, where it gets prepared for the ones who stayed the whole time, basically. So at this point in time, when their mother was asking, they hadn't been the whole time. So we had to play it out. Then what is this cup that they are to drink? This also full circles back to the Last Supper, where this cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. So they are to drink of the blood of sacrifice, essentially, and they will be at the Last Supper. I think it's also Jesus's cup that is to be poured out is his sacrifice willingly on the cross, and their cup that they are to drink is being martyred for Christ. Then we are back at they are given a throne. So they don't get to just sit on the right hand and left hand of Jesus. They are actually given thrones in heaven, which is not what they were thinking when they were asking this. They were thinking Jesus was going to overthrow Rome and be the mortal king of Israel um, after they overthrow Rome. But then another thing that just stood out to me this week was right after this. So in verse 31, we have a hard turn. So Jesus is saying, you guys have stuck with me through everything, and you're going to get a throne in heaven. And then he immediately turns and says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. But what really stood out to me that I just noticed this week is because I was just comparing different translations. When in verse 31, when he's talking to Simon, which is Simon Peter, Satan demanded to have you that he might sift you like wheat. Those yous are plural. So he's talking about everybody, all the disciples there, which I didn't notice until this week. I thought it was a singular you that we were talking about because we were addressing Simon directly, but no. Jesus is using the plural form of you, talking about everybody that's there, is to be sifted like wheat. So they're going to scatter, basically. I think it's referring to when Jesus dies for those 3 days, everybody kind of goes away, does their own thing. Then Peter will deny Jesus 3 times this very night. But in verse 32, he continues, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. In 32, all of those used are singular, talking directly to Peter. Because Peter is going to be the rock that he builds the church on. He is the first pope. He's the leader of the church, and all that. So he is to, once he regains his faith, after Jesus comes back and restores Peter, he goes and strengthens his brothers. And then they go far and wide and spread the gospel, which is just a thing to remember, is that the disciples here were nobodies. They were not people of significance in any way. We have Simon's a fisherman, and he ends up becoming the Pope, essentially. Matthew's a tax collector. And then we have Simon the Zealot, which are on completely opposite ends of their belief here. So the Matthew, being a tax collector, works for Rome, despised by Jews, being seen as a traitor. And Simon the Zealot, the Zealots were Jewish nationalists, essentially. Some sects were assassins, essentially, that are trying to overthrow Rome. They cause rebellion, and I think probably ultimately why Rome ends up being there in AD 70 to sack Jerusalem and ends up destroying the temple, because riots started to happen because they were trying to overthrow Rome. But Jesus was the glue that held them all together. This little band of misfits, just a reminder that God can use anybody, no matter what your past is. He can use you. to do great things. Whether it's anything grandiose as becoming Pope, or just the small little things, being a good neighbor and sharing your witness, raising your kids in the fear and admonition of the Lord. We all have a part to play in the big picture. Yeah, I think that's what I got for this week. I think that was the biggest revelation I had, was just the plural form of you in verse 31. I've always read it as singular. I guess that's what happens when you read the footnotes and notice that it says it's plural there. But yeah, anyways, read your footnotes in your Bible. Good thing to do. But as always, love God, love people. Have a good day.